بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I want to thank everybody for joining us for our Wednesday discussion. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam, rasulullah. I'm Malik Shaw, the Executive Director of MANA. And tonight, as part of our discussion on how do we get married, we have two special guests, mashallah, from the Bay Area. Our brother Sundiata, Rashid, and his wife Zarreen. Mashallah. Mashallah. Both, very active in the Bay Area at Lighthouse Mosque. Inshallah, we're gonna hear their journey of being married, how they got married, and how do we get to the point where they're sitting on the couch on a Wednesday, August 4th, 2021, telling us their story. So we're gonna jump right in, inshallah. And if you all could just tell us, how did you two human beings come in contact with each other?
Mashallah. Mashallah. I'm going to let Sundiata go first. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to everyone. Such a pleasure to be here at this space. Alhamdulillah, to share our story with y'all.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm going to let Sundiata go first because I think I told my story so many times. Let me hear his version.
It's funny because I've heard my wife tell a story and I'll be like, I don't remember none of that. But so our story of how we met starts in two different places.
I'm gonna stop him right here, Sister Zarreen. I was setting him up just to see if he was ready. So I'm gonna read your bio, but I wanted to just set him up. I wanted to see if he was ready. So, all right. So our special guest, Sister Zarreen and Sundiata Rashid met in 1995 through Sundiata's sister, who attended San Francisco State with Zarreen. They married in December of 1995. In the fall of 96, they moved to Washington, D.C., where Zarreen pursued her master's at Howard University, and Sundiata enrolled in the Arabic intensive program at the Institute of Arabic and Islamic Studies of America, the Mahad in Fairfax. That's how it's pronounced, brother?
Yeah.
MashaAllah. Their first daughter, Fatimah, was born at Howard Hospital in July 1997. After completing their studies in the D.C. area, they returned to Oakland, where Sundiata began working in the Oakland Unified School District, and Zarreen began teaching and later became an administrator at Masjid Al Islam School. MashaAllah. So we have two educators here. They had their second daughter, Zainab, in April of 2000. Over the years, Zarreen continued her work in education and has taught in the Islamic public, private, and charter schools. Sundiata has worked as a social worker, and both have been active in the Islamic community. They had their third child, Muhammad, in June 2010, followed by their fourth child, Aisha, in 2013. They currently reside in Oakland and attend the Lighthouse Mosque. Now, my brother, who I met, mashallah, I met with another beautiful soul. I don't know if you remember. I came to the Lighthouse, and I brother Hassan Yusuf. I met you
guys that came out so you guys that came out to Tatley, and me and Hassan went to Tatley. I think Sherman Jackson was there.
Dr. Jackson was there.
And then we told you that we was having like a unity breakfast.
Yep.
The following morning, and then you guys showed up. I was like, wow, they really came out.
Mashallah.
Who was the other brother you was with?
His brother is here. He's Brother Abdul Kareem. He lives here with us.
Yeah. Tell the brother I said salam alaikum.
We'll do. So now we're gonna put the pressure on him, sister.
All right.
so alhamdulillah, bismillah. All right. So tell us. I read your bio, like how you met through sister, but tell me, what was that meeting like?
So that's what I was saying. So two things was happening. One, I was in the military when she was going to San Francisco State. And so I met her, which I never told anybody this, but this is perfect time to bring it up. I was getting ready to ship out to Okinawa. So it must have been 1993 or the end of 92. And they was having a little going away thing for me. And my sister came because my sister brought her, Zarreen, because she was going to do her hair. So I met her just really briefly. But when I met her just that brief time, I already knew we was going to get married. So I ended up going to Japan. That was a year straight. So I didn't see her for all of 93, all of 94. When I get back in 95 to California, I'm sitting at my sister's house, same sister who brought her to they went to San Francisco State together.
Yes.
And she called the house looking. That was back in the days of the house phone. So you couldn't tell who was calling. Like now, you know who's calling.
Yeah.
I just cold answered like a cold answer. Didn't know who was gonna be on there, and then I was like, "Who's this white girl?"
Bad.
And then she told me her name. I was like, "Oh, she's not white. She just educated."
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
So then she said, we ended, my sister wasn't home. We ended up just talking on the phone. She told me she was about to go the next day to buy a car. And she said, can I go and help her with the mechanic so that she could, she said that when the guy is there, you know what I'm saying? So we went and we bought the biggest lemon ever. Like I didn't know anything about the car, but I was trying to show off. So I get up there, I'm asking questions that don't make sense. So the guy selling, he's a white guy, was selling cars in East Oakland. We should have known. He told us, and I think it was like what, $1,200 or something. Something like that. He paid cash for that. $1,200 back in them days. That was good money. And so we went on for them. That was in the summer of 95, like July, and then we ended up getting married in December.
Let me just say something about our first meeting at so I had my first introduction to Sundiata was at his sister's house, and she had a military photograph of him that she used to highlight on her table. He was in his uniform, and in front of that picture, she used to keep the Quran. MashaAllah. And she wasn't really a practicing Muslim, but she would, one of her books that she would refer to often was the Quran. And every time she would mention her brother, she would always mention that he was Muslim. And that he was religious. And so the first time I looked at that picture and I looked at the Quran, and I was like, that's interesting. I could meet him one day. I was thinking about a religious person that, like, his sister saying he's religious, and he must really be religious. So I was like, that was my first. The second time I met him was, like I said,
this was actually
the first time I met him. It was at his mother's house, and I went over with his sister, and he was so loud and obnoxious. Oh my goodness! Like he was like making jokes, or like he would let people get the edge of word and in the conversation. He was like taking over all the conversation, laughing like he's laughing now, and I was like, wow, okay.
Wow.
Him after all, because all this time, and when I seen the picture, it was a long time before I actually met him. But I would always think of it occasionally, especially when I was over the house and I would see the photograph and the Quran together. So that was interesting. MashaAllah. All right, you can continue.
So I must say, I was messing with my brother Sundiata at the intro, but your smiling and nodding shows that he got the story right.
MashaAllah, he did. He got the story right. And then when he came back that second time after he did take me, he went with me. He actually offered me money to help pay for the car, and we barely knew each other. He was like, oh, if you need some money, I can help you pay for it. And we had pretty much just met. Again,
the brother knew he was gonna marry you, sis. So he was trying to get down. Okay, MashaAllah, we see you working. All right,
it was an kind of thing because I kind of knew too. I mean, actually, I thought I tell this story that when I saw the photo in the Quran, that's kind of when I knew that in my head, something flashed, like this is gonna be my husband. MashaAllah. Kid you not, that's what happened. MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. Okay, so.
But I did not grow up Muslim, and actually, when I met him that few times, I was not Muslim.
Okay. So now let's get to. So we decide we're gonna get married after you come back from Okinawa.
Oh, this is long. So now this is so when I was in the military, they tried to send me to Iraq, and I ended up going AWOL. And so I missed the movement. I left the military. I showed back up in California, and I had just came back from Bosnia. So when I was in Bosnia, well, I was in Europe, but it was for the Bosnia campaign. At that time, American ATMs didn't work in Bosnia, so they went that whole 6 months of that campaign, and it's crazy because now your ATM card work anywhere in the world, but at this time I couldn't take money out the bank, so that whole 6 months I'm getting direct deposited, but then I'm not able to spend the money. So I'm like, I was over there just eating, whatever I could get from the military. Like I wasn't going spending no money. If we went somewhere like around Europe, I was bumming my friends. Hey man, because they all knew that I didn't have no money. I think that I got per diem. I might have got like $3 a day or something. So whatever that was a month, that's what I was living off of. And so, but when I came back, I had all of this. Hence why I was able to offer her money. Because I had thousands and thousands of dollars. So I had been back for like a really short time, and they tried to ship me out to Iraq, and I just was like, I wasn't feeling it. So I ended up going to change a tire, and I hurt my back. And that gave me it. So when my back got hurt, I said, okay, I'm just leaving, man. I ain't about to go to war with the Muslims. I can't do it. And so I came back. And so I crashed at my sister's house. Like my sister was the only one I knew wasn't gonna turn me in. I was like, my mama gonna be like, you can't come here. You know what I'm saying? So I was with my sister, and then I met Zarreen, and then I had a bunch of money. And the funny thing, because you know how siblings is, when I came home, I was like, how much is your rent? And whatever she told me, I gave her like 3 months of that. Here's for the next 3 months. And then she kicked me out like a week later.
Well, you're out. Thank you for that rent payment, but you're out of here. So let's now. How do we? So we're homeless now. Now we got married. Like, let me ask you all a question.
Sure.
Growing up, what was your views of and you've since kind of reconciled your military experience. Yeah, alhamdulillah. You've since reconciled that. For the record, you're good on your your experience. What were your views on marriage growing up?
Mashallah. Alhamdulillah.
Actually, so she could go first. So I came from a single parent mom. She actually had like a full blown like Ozzie and Harriet thing going.
No, not necessarily Ozzie and Harriet. I would not call it that. But I did come from a big family. My mom had my grandmother on my mother's side had 13, 14 children. So they had a large family, and my childhood was full of family parties. So all of my aunts and uncles, they all stayed married, and my mom and dad, they stayed married until I was around 18 or 19. So the whole time I was growing up, they were married, and everybody relationships. It was kind of you're in it no matter what kind of feeling. Even though there was major problems, in some of the relationships, people stuck it out, and they stuck it out and appreciated each other when they could. When they didn't, they just long. But and so I think marriage for me growing up, ideally, I wanted to get married. That was my thing. I totally believed in marriage, and even though my parents did divorce when I was about 19 years old, I still, even after that, kind of figured the best way for people to survive in the world is with family. So that was always a strong component for me.
All right, brother Sundiata.
So, like, I mean, I grew up in Oakland. So she's actually we overlapped times in the same place before she spent some of her time up here in the Bay too. But like when I was growing up in South Berkeley and East Oakland, like I knew who my dad was and went to visit with him and things like that. And, you know, we had a cool relationship, but that was like way different from most of the kids who I grew up with. Like it was just mostly single mamas, you know what I'm saying? So, and even in our house, my mom was a single mom, and that's who I was with, you know, 80 to 90% of the time. It was her just and me and my siblings. And so marriage was something that we saw on TV more than something that we saw people interacting or going through. So my grandmother in San Francisco and my grandfather, they was married, but outside of those two, we didn't see. And I had like, my mom had a friend named Oshun. Shout out to Oshun and Patrice. They still together. And they were married, and that might have been the only ones who I could really think of that I saw in a relationship like that. And I remember even when I came to Islam, well, my dad was Muslim, but once I started practicing Islam, you know, I would see like marriage was a big part of the religion. So I started becoming religious when I was in high school, and so I was like, I'm gonna get married. I'm gonna get married. So the realization came before I even knew anything about what it meant to actually be a husband and a father. It was just, you know, something I saw on TV.
But it was something you desired.
Yeah. Oh, and then when I started going to Masjid Al Islam, like, you know, we had a brother named Amir Malik Ali, and he made these marriage khutbahs when people would get married. Man, that stuff you would be like, yeah, that's right. Marriage, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, it was, you know, false advertising. No, I'm just playing. Shout out to Brother Abdul Malik.
Alhamdulillah. Well, it inspired, it lit the fire under you, man. You know? So you all get married in December.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we met, it was less than 2 to 3 months before we got married.
Yeah.
Well, he had already said he was gonna marry you a couple years before that.
Yeah. I knew since '93. You know what I'm saying?
He was.
The plan, I was like, I had to get this done before '96. You know what I'm saying? So December '95.
You know, this is how we chill from '93 until, right? Yeah. So you all get married December. Once you're married, what do you see as, like, do you have a vision of what you wanted your marriage to look like? Or were you just like, you know, alhamdulillah, we married? All right.
No, I remember my diary. This is funny, and I regret it. But on my diary, what I asked for is that we communicate, we sit down and intentionally communicate our needs to each other every week for a year. And that was my diary when I got married.
You said you all would communicate your needs to each other
weekly. Yes, weekly. Consciously. Yes, sit down, have a meeting, talk about our needs, how we're feeling to each other, and that was my diary. That's what I asked for. I should have asked for like $50,000.
The man had money stacked up for years, so yeah, I'm sure you would have knew that story.
I asked for my diary because I think it was I knew in marriage, just having witnessed the ups and downs of marriage, that communication is key and trustworthiness and trust is key. So I felt that going in, that was my desire to have that.
I think one of the things when we first got married, she got into Howard. And so we were like two California kids at DC's, and we was newly married. We had been married for just
a year before I went.
Yeah, just less than a year, because it was like we went that fall. So
because I worked at Masjid Al Islam before we went.
And that was after we came back.
No,
see, you know, sometimes our memories as we get older, they don't line up. But so we ended up in December of '95. We got married. I got a job with my sister from January to June, and she gave me this job. This is another sister of mine, even though I didn't have, because I was a fugitive from the military, so I couldn't use my social security number, any of that stuff, but she hooked me up. And then it was during that time that we was getting ready. So that following August, September of 96, we moved to DC. We didn't know anybody in DC. So it was like, we was hanging out. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have a TV. We would read to each other.
MashaAllah.
And we didn't have a bed. We had like, at the beginning, we had an air mattress. Every time we would wake up in the morning, that thing would be flat. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have an electric pump. I would pump it up every night with one of them little manual pumps. And then by the morning, we'd be back on the floor. Like, you would wake up in the middle of the night and be like, this thing half flat already. But so, and
that's love. That's what you do. Yeah, that's the.
So then one time we got a futon, and we didn't have a car. So we had to walk up and I had to carry that thing, and that was like the futon mattress. We slept on that for about a year in Washington D.C. and that was when we had our first baby. But I think that time was what really kind of was able to kind of, if you get through that kind of struggling, you kind of in for the long haul.
Yeah, you cement the relationship.
Right. And also, I think even though we were new to the DC area, we also had a connection to Masjid Al Islam, which they had a masjid in DC. So we had an instant family. So we went to all their classes, even if we were the only people there every week, like three times a week we were at Masjid Al Islam, listening to lectures, listening to workshops, participating in Juma. They had this after Juma, they used to sell these milkshakes, the best milkshakes I ever had. They had cream, mango, and dates. Try it.
The mango date shake.
Ice cream, mango, and dates.
They were blended right there.
And it was like they would sell out every single Juma.
It was like, so for us going to DC, and man, it was just a special thing because it was like, in Masjid, growing up in Masjid or participating in Masjid Al Islam in Oakland, the leadership was black, but a lot of the masjid was like people from the immigrant community. It was either Palestinians and and we have a lot of brothers and sisters too, but it was a lot of. When we got to DC, I was like Islam in the 70s. That's how I remember being Muslim as a kid. Like everybody was black in DC, and then we would go to. By Masjid Muhammad, so we spent we went to our first iftars where they would serve food every night of Ramadan was Masjid Muhammad. We was like, man, now that's like a common thing in every masjid, but for us, we was like, they serve iftar every night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I think one of the important things about the beginning of our marriage is that we were immersed in a community, and even if it wasn't Masjid Al Islam, we would go to the other local masajids in the area and felt welcome. Felt welcome everywhere we went. It was
we would be with the Salafis one day, the Wardi Muhammad community the next Friday. We was around. Know what I'm saying?
Now let me ask you this: as you're learning more about each other and your relationship is being cemented, I meant to ask: did you have any premarital relation? Did you have premarital classes?
No, just Abdi Malik's khutbahs. Abdi Malik would do a lot of weddings, ceremonies, and we would attend all of those. And so we heard he would talk about basically the man is the protector, maintainer, the woman is obedient. Right. Once we got married, all of that was out the window.
I think there was, in terms of being connected to community and then just going to many lectures. Of course, cyclically, marriage would come up as a topic. So there would be input, every 2-3 years or once a year or every 6 months, the topic would be on something related to marriage. And that was always helpful in terms of just, getting some guidance on what takes place in marriage.
But it was definitely marriage back in those days was like on the job training. Like you get a couple books, like
True.
Wives or Marriage in Islam by I can't even remember. Maybe it might have even been Ihsan Bagby, you know what I'm saying? And we just kind of did our thing, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, I feel like part of it was we felt like Islam was like, it was something that it had like a purpose to it in a direction. Yes. So it was like we was Muslim and this is how we live and this is what we do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was definitely in terms of like I said, it was like it's a way of life. It was like take it literally. It was literally a way of life. And so we were definitely immersed in. And I think the whole of our marriage, we've been immersed in one Islamic community or another.
So that I would say,
in our community, even though
that's very important. I would say like mission,
but we were in a community at most of the time, and even I think the worst time is now. Kind of like it's declining. The community life is declining.
I'm glad you
experienced when we were younger. I feel like it's shrinking, like getting smaller and smaller and smaller as we're getting older, which is, we have to combat that because we definitely, for our children's sake and wider community, need to make sure that, it gets bigger and bigger as it's while just shrinking.
So I'm glad you mentioned that because part of this program, this weekly program, and is part of a bigger kind of focus with Manna that we want to. We're going to have Dr. Anissa Nadir is going to be doing a course called Before the Nikah, kind of, telling people, training people what to look for, how to kind of premarital training that, many of us who got married in the 90s, 2000s, we didn't have this, and so we you made it through, as you were saying, because your mission was to be Muslim. But because there was no training on the ground. And so with, Dr. Anissa and Imam Nadeem is going to be doing a course called Marriage is Half Our Deen, but What is the Other Half? And that course will be, starting next month, inshallah, the beginning of September. And what we would like to do is just kind of give people better bedding in their relationships. Because I would agree with you, communally, we're not where we used to be. And you need a community to keep your marriage together.
Right. I agree 100%.
You definitely need a community to keep your marriage. And we don't, if we're not going to have marriages, we don't have a community.
Right.
So that's why we want to hear the next part of your story. So you're in DC and marriage gets real when you have your daughter.
Right.
I asked Brother Sundiata a question. As you're driving home from the hospital, birthing center, wherever our sisters are in.
Howard Hospital.
How did you feel as you're driving home with your baby and your wife?
It's funny because it just seemed almost like it wasn't real. Like it was like I got another life. And I remember like I was so scared because babies are small, man. So like I remember just being so scared that something might happen. Like, what I'm saying? Like it's like she seems so fragile, you know what I'm saying? And one of the things, my dad actually came to move in and live with us.
Mashallah.
So he stayed with us from before the baby was born. And then like right after the baby was born, the feds came looking for me. So, the gig was up. So I had to actually go back to the military and deal with that. And that took a year before I was actually released and discharged. And so my dad was able to kind of hold things down for me at the whole time at the house. And I remember like
say something about that.
Okay, go ahead.
So so I was in my second year of graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
When I got pregnant, I was like, ooh, I'm pregnant. Beginning of my second year at graduate school, I just became a teacher assistant. I was in the film production, so I was like doing workshops on film equipment and having to lift all this heavy stuff. So I had to modify my educational plans because I was pregnant now and I was about to have a baby. And one of the most beautiful things in my life that has ever happened to me is Sundiata's dad. Mashallah. Serve him, give him the highest Jenna. He came to help us. I had to go to classes. I was a full-time student. I had a part-time job, and he would stay with the little baby while we were busy getting along with life. That was just one of the most beautiful things that I can recall in my whole entire life, and one of the things I'm most grateful for. Having experienced that, mashallah. And that again belies the point of community and like family, and how, you know, it's just so important to be, you know, be involved with your family and to create those relationships.
And
go ahead, brother.
Her dad came too. He came out and he hung out, and because
he was like, in New York, so
yeah, because you know he was in Queens and we was in DC, so you know you got the 95 takes you straight down, and it was kind of like, because we were so out of the element, because like her family is mostly in San Diego and my family is mostly in Oakland, and we was kind of like, we was almost like fish out of water when we had the baby. So it was something that I remember the first time we didn't have a TV and the Bulls was playing in the championship or something. And I told my dad I'd be right back. And I went to a friend's house and I came back home. He got so upset because I had left him with the baby. Oh. I don't remember where my wife was. It was probably like a Saturday or something. She might have been doing something.
Right.
When I came back, Jordan had won that championship.
Yeah, mashallah. And the other thing about, you know, being married early, I think we were very busy with other things than just marriage. Like I had my education, we had community work, we had marriage, you know, we have children. There's like just a worker mentality that kind of keeps you busy in a good sense, especially when you're working for to make the world a better place, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. But it also just keeps you moving forward, though sometimes you do need to take a time to, you know, think and reflect.
So let me ask you a question. I really appreciate you highlighting your fathers and their assistance, you know, in your marriage and with their, you know, their granddaughter, because part of what we want to do in highlighting marriage and kind of increasing healthy marriages is to highlight, you know, good men. Because, you know, we often just kind of shine, you know, we curse the darkness. Brothers, you know, black fathers, this, that, and the other. And we're done cursing the darkness. We want to shine light on men who are honorable and dignified, who deserve to be honored. That story of, you know, brother Sundiata, your father coming and just assisting, even though you want to watch Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Even though you out here watching the game.
Marshall, he had a law degree. He was an educator, professor. He just dropped everything. It just came out.
MashaAllah. And your father as well, you know, Sister Zarreen.
And they both rest in peace to both of them. My father, he passed in 2017, and then her father, he passed in 2019. So, you know, it's really like one of the things too about when people are gone. It creates a kind of void, so it's you know, it's hard to replace those kind of voids when they're gone. You know what I'm saying? And really, I think one of the natural processes of life is we're supposed. So now I'm supposed to, when my daughters have children, I'm supposed to be there, the granddad that can step in and help out, because that's what I learned from seeing my father do.
Yeah, and that's important to have that script. Like, okay, I already know what I'm supposed to do, right? And so, next question would be, what have you learned since you've been married? What would you say you've learned about yourself that you're like, wow, I probably wouldn't have learned this if I didn't go ahead and do this, if I didn't go from 93 to 96. You know, what do you feel like you've learned about yourself through being married?
I mean, I think for myself, I don't want to cut anybody off. I think you learn to sacrifice. I think one of the things that when you're not married, you know, you're really just looking out for number one, which is yourself. But then once you have a family, you can't put your own needs first. Like the family actually comes first. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember, you know, I was in the military man, if you would have looked underneath my wife gonna say you still got a lot of shoes. But I used to have every time I would get paid, I would go buy a pair of Jordans or something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like underneath my bed, it was just all of these shoes. And then I remember when I first got married, man, I remember having like buying shoes at Payless shoe store because like it's like the money is tight. We got a family, and so I remember I would be buying shoes that would make my socks have holes in them. I was like, why is my sock? I was like, these cheap shoes. You know what I'm saying? So that's some of the things that I learned. Just like you just had to sacrifice for the family. You know what I'm saying? And you got to do it without expecting people to kind of notice it. Like I appreciate the fact that you guys even had this program because most married couples, nobody stops to appreciate them for what they've done and the sacrifices they've made.
I have to agree. I think it's all about sacrifice. I think especially from a woman's point of view, it's kind of like, yes, okay, I was like 25 and pretty much had a master's in film production. I was supposed to be a professor. My dream was to teach a professor at a university teaching documentary filmmaking, and I wanted to do documentary filmmaking and put a message out there. And those are 18-hour, 20-hour days. That industry is hard work. So it's kind of surreal to realize that there's more important things. Family's more important than that. I mean, I had a degree, could have did it. Kind of went back a couple times trying to pick it up. I'm still now trying to pick it up again, but it also was like an easy sacrifice. It wasn't that important. After all, even after getting that degree early in my life and possibly having that opportunity, it was kind of like, okay, now I got a family. I have to be with my kids. My whole entire life, I've been with my kids. Like I've always been a teacher too. That's one of the things that I always wanted to do, teach and like spread message of peace and help guide the youth. That's my thing. So I was able to do that, alhamdulillah, and I a credentialed teacher. So I taught all my life. I was able to homeschool my kids, keep them in good environments, give them Islamic opportunities in the world. And I think I did my part for my family.
No, inshallah.
I mean, it trumps money, it trumps career, it trumps everything.
My wife got a lot of money. Don't let her fool you.
Yeah, she holding it back. No, inshallah. I'm really glad you pointed that out. Because today, sometimes young people, when I talk to young people about marriage, sometimes they feel like, well, if I get married, I'm not gonna be able to do this, or it's almost like just be a mom, like you know what I mean, like that's something. Like, you know how you got here? You know what I'm saying? Somebody, so it's really good that may Allah give you, on the day when all of our films are shown, may Allah give you, something better than an Oscar.
Inshallah.
May Allah give you, the highest reward and the highest level of Jannah for your sacrifice.
Inshallah.
And may your kids be, just be the apple of your eye for the sacrifices that you both you've done for them. And I love like that, the pleasant, like you're just saying, like, of course, it's been worth it.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
You know what I mean? And that's what I would say. We have to make marriage something that a person would just want to do. Instead of just, marriage, man, shoot, it's kind of hard. Right?
Yeah, hard times, mashallah.
Of course.
Hard times. Let's talk about it.
But
we're going to skip the hard times. I got to hear about the hard times all the time. We celebrate the day.
We celebrate the day, brother. No, alhamdulillah. And so we're on our second child is born in California, correct?
Yeah.
How does that?
So for myself, I had two things. I had a federal case that the feds was looking for me. So that made me go back to the military to get my name and stuff right. So I go back to the military. I had done 3 years before I left.
Okay.
So then I was gone for 2 years. So I was thinking as soon as I got back, they was just gonna, court martial me and they put me right back in for another year. And then at the end of that year, that's when they court martialed me and discharged me. So I did, in total, I did more than the 4 years I would have originally done. I just didn't do them I just didn't do them consecutively. I didn't do a break. So now we get out of the military and she's finished school. We went to New York for a little while because my mom had a place in New York, and we just couldn't get nothing happening. It was like unemployment in New York was super high. I only had at the time a high school degree.
Yes.
And my mom came out that summer, and then so my wife was like, okay, there's too many women in this house. So she ended up going to San Diego. So then I'm stuck with my mom. Yeah. And then so we ended up meeting back up in in Oakland. And so we came to Oakland. We stayed with my sister again. You know what I'm saying? And then we got back. We got on our feet. It seemed a little bit like a while before because I started working in the Oakland Unified School District, and so at that, unlike today, it was very affordable. Oakland was a very affordable town back in those days. So we ended up getting a place in East Oakland, and it was like we was paying $400 a month rent or something. So it was like. And it was so close to the masjid, we could walk to the masjid in like 2 minutes. So, and at that point, the masjid was a powerhouse. It was just thriving masjid. It was a lot of programs. They had school. So my wife started to work at the school. And then, we had Zainab, our second child. Mm-hmm. And it was about a 3-year difference between the two. So my wife, she could take both kids to the classroom. And she would teach with the kids there. That's why she's saying she was afforded the opportunity to kind of always be with the kids and things like that. And so, alhamdulillah, that picture was taken. This is last Eid at the Eid al-Fitr that just passed.
So you have 3. It's 4 here.
It's 4 together. It's a 3. The 2 oldest girls, and then the 2 younger is a boy and a girl.
Okay.
So it's Fatimah, she's kneeling, and then Zainab is on the left. 24. Fatima's 24. Zainab is 21. Muhammad is 11, and then Aisha's 8.
Mashallah.
And then this is when actually Zainab, she graduated from Mills College just this last May. So, and it was, we were still under the pandemic. Right. So weirdest. One of the good things about the pandemic is we don't have to go sit through long graduations.
Oh, I love graduations. I must admit, I love the graduations. Anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You just do a little thing on Zoom, and then this is actually West Oakland. This is across the street from where Huey P. Newton was murdered. And so they have a mural right there. And so I have Muhammad and Aisha just kind of pay homage to the folks that came before us. One thing about Oakland, it has a serious history. True. And so we one of the things that my mom and dad did for me was they really imposed like the importance of our history as Black people. And so I try to do that with my kids, even though they be like, I don't even want to hear it no more.
Yeah.
And then this was just recently at a barbecue. It's funny because when I was looking through the pictures, I was really like, in the beginning, we didn't take pictures as Muslims. Like that was just something we didn't do. So it's like all of the pictures we have are kind of like things started to change maybe around 2005 or something.
Well, we took pictures, but we had to go get them developed. And
but I'm saying, remember everybody was like, no, this is my family. Well, but we don't.
No, we don't put them on walls.
No, we have like pictures albums. But it's not the same. I feel like
the phone, the technology. Everybody has it on the phone. No one prints.
I understand what you're saying. I think there was a time period where people just didn't take.
It was like, no, don't take my picture. Like now you can't go to Juma and it's not 50 pictures being taken. Yeah. But it was a time when the Muslims was kind of like, oh no, that's images. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you might have some family pictures, but it wasn't like to the level that you would have now.
True.
Now it's just like we take pictures of everything now.
So now that you have your children, if I was to ask you, what is your hopes, dreams, and aspirations for them?
Mashallah. So mine is for them to be able to grow up in a Muslim community, for my older girls to get married young-ish, and be able to keep Islam, practice Islam, live in Islam, inshallah, in a community with active, progressive community that has programs and opportunities for children and schools, affordable schools, and those kinds of things. Which right now is looking bleak, unfortunately. in the areas, it's not happening like that. But inshallah.
So I think there was a time, when the African American community in Oakland, we had schools, we had a lot of those things, and then just as time went on, those kind of things kind of faltered. You know what I'm saying? The community got older, things slowed down, but I do see even here in Oakland, there's kind of like a reemergence of things happening. You know what I'm saying? I always thank God for. I feel like Imam Zaid and the Lighthouse Mosque, man, that really was a game changer for us. You know what I'm saying? Like even before, like Oakland was an after. Like when people think of California, they never thought about Oakland. They thought about Southern California. Even Brother Tariq Subhani, he came way out here. He skipped right over us. He said, "I'm going to LA." You know what I'm saying? But I feel like now because of Zaytuna, Lighthouse, Mosque, Top Leaf, the Bay for Muslims. I mean, for everybody, the Bay Area is a really, really like a place where a lot's happening. But for Muslims, it's almost like an epicenter.
Yeah, but I do think this, we're at a critical point, at a crossroads. And for the youth, especially, I think, my kids grew up, they were homeschooled, they had a close Islamic presence, but it's actually dwindling as they get older. It just seems to me that there's not as many events and opportunities to be around as there used to be. Like when I was growing up, it was everywhere. Like when I was 24, 25, every single where it was easy, 10 minutes, 15 minutes away. You didn't have to go 60 minutes or an hour away. And it was next door. It was easily accessible. And I think the accessibility nowadays is shrinking. So I think for me, I see my older girls feeling a little bit more being isolated more in society. So they have to do things. I don't know if it's technology that's driving this kind of isolation.
I thought we were celebrating.
We are. I'm just saying.
So first of all,
as a community, we have to
I think that there's a few things
into action.
A few things that's happening. Number one is, people who chose to become Muslim, they're gonna drive 60 minutes to an event. Whereas, kids, they grew up Muslim. I mean, there's plenty of events that the girls don't go to just because they don't want to go. It ain't like it. They don't have the opportunity. Like they have a different mindset because Islam is just a part of their life. So like a person who converts to Islam, if they stop doing certain things, they're not gonna feel Muslim. People who are born Muslim, they did not really do anything. Like I know brothers who don't do anything Islamic, but because their heritage is Islam is in their heritage, they'll never say I'm not Muslims. You know what I'm saying? So in a way, let me just finish that. So in a way, that's a good thing that the community is evolving to a point where we used to but that person ain't Muslim no more, but that's because of the way we looked at Islam was kind of narrow. So it's a good thing that Islam is kind of like broadened in the spectrum so people can still be Muslim and not have to necessarily wear it on their sleeves. But in number two, I
okay,
think I feel like that,
now.
and then I'm gonna let you finish.
No.
I feel like
5 minutes left. What time is it?
I feel like also
2-minute timer
with children. I feel like I've seen it just from knowing Muslims and seeing it. It's like, you know, kids grow up Muslim, they take a little hiatus in their mind. They're still Muslim, but they're not. And then they get married and start their own family, and then the institutions that are so important to us become important to them once they start their own family. So right. I don't think it's all black and dwindling. And
can I interject something here?
When between my 20s and my 30s, being an Islamic community, we went on snow trips, we had women's meetings, we had women's retreats, we had all these other kind of activities. We would meet, we would cook together, we would do, and I don't see that happening. So
let me ask you a question then.
Currently.
So when you all got married, there was some intentionality there, right? So obviously 93 to 96.
And there was a place for us to go. There was a place for us to be. We didn't have to create it from scratch.
So is there intentionality you feel like with getting the next generation married or even prepared to be married?
So can I say something? Yeah. I don't want to get in trouble when we get off the phone. Go ahead and say what you want to say. Go ahead. No, you got it.
No, I wasn't going to say anything.
Okay, so I think that you have a few different things going on, and one of those things that you have going on. See, ask the question again. I got a little bit distracted.
I think as converts, it was very intentional on knowing, okay, Allah says I have to get married. Okay, I'm going to get married. Right? Like you said, like we just got married and we cemented it the first year. Do you think the next generation that it's been just as intentional, even amongst ourselves, in preparing or even getting the next generation married? And
I remember what I was going to say. So what I was going to say is I feel like for us, we never saw Islamic marriages. So I was second generation, but I never saw Muslim married couples. And then my wife, she was a convert.
Right.
So our kids, they, one thing they take for granted, the fact that they grew up in the Muslim communities and Muslim households. So they don't even know the blessings that they were spared a lot of the drama that kids go through.
Right.
But by the same token, so like the first time I heard Abdul Malik talk about marriage,
right,
I was sold because I didn't know anything about what marriage was like. Our kids, by the other hand, there's been so many divorces in the Muslim community. They've seen so much different drama, and so they're not looking forward to marriage in the same way that I think we did. So I feel like we gotta kind of sell it to them. You know what I'm saying?
No, I appreciate that.
We gotta be the Abdul Maliks for the next generation.
No, and that's partly why, to go back to the purpose of this program, is to shine light on beautiful marriages and people who are working it out, who are fighting the good fight. To hear stories about your fathers and how you need a community to not just stay Muslim, but to raise children.
That's right.
And that now that we want to start teaching classes on to prepare people to be married. I was saying with Imam Nadeem and Sister Dr. Anissa Nadir, that's something Manna wants to do, because we realize that we're not going to have an Islam in America, in the African American community, if we don't have healthy families.
Right. Yeah, and I love that the first marriage program that you had. That they got put together by the community.
Yes.
Like nowadays, it's hard to do that, and if you do it, you're kind of putting someone from California to someone in Detroit. Like you got to go to Detroit. It's like, I guess it's expanding, but. It's kind of like, okay, so yeah, my daughter was interested in marriage. I'm like, ooh, where am I going to find somebody to marry to? I'm like, oh, and then after a while, I was like, okay, I'm not interested in marriage anymore. But it's kind of, it's hard. So we do need intentionality in that regard. We need those mothers in the community. Like I love that story of how people in the community help to put their relationship together and assisted in the whole process. And community is key. A strong, active community is key.
And I agree 100% with everything my wife's been saying.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. If I may, if you could tell us a little bit about Lighthouse, Sundiata, I know you both of you all are real active in Lighthouse, so you could tell us a little bit about Lighthouse, what's going on.
So to agree with my wife is the community's dissipating. No, so you know,
affordability. It has a lot of. There's like so many different factors.
So the Lighthouse Mosque is it was founded by Imam Zaid and some others. You know what I'm saying? And so you know one of the things that was happening in Oakland is that a lot of the old powerhouse mosques, the people there started aging and different things started happening. So those mosques had slowed down. And so there was a point in the like the early to mid 2000s where Oakland just kind of things wasn't really happening. So once the Lighthouse Mosque started, it gave people a place where they can kind of, so the schools, and that's one thing my wife is right. Like our kids used to go to Islamic schools in Oakland. There was like 2 Islamic schools that you could choose from. Now, if you want to send your kids to school, you got to send them to the suburbs. They're going to be the only African-American child there. And if anything come up missing, they kid him. They're going to blame the black kid. They're going to be like, we're all Muslim, but your kid stole my wallet. So, those things definitely we had to work through. But the main thing is getting people back to a place where they feel comfortable, express their religiosity. And that's what the Lighthouse tries to do.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Well, as someone who's been able, I didn't attend, I haven't been able to come to the new building. MashaAllah, I'm sure the spirit is there.
Can I just say one thing? So about the new building. So we used to be in this little real small place. And this was around 2008 when the crash happened. Yeah. And they were selling a church across the street for $300,000 and $318,000. And we wasn't able to get it. And a brother came to me and said, how much would y'all need to get another church? And I told him $300,000. And he showed up the next day with a check for $300,000. The only problem was the real estate market had went back up. So we paid about $600,000 for the place, for the new Lighthouse. One brother gave $300,000 and the rest of the Muslims chipped in for the other half.
So if I may say before we go, and I'm sure like you all were, really instrumental in that. Imam Zaid speaks highly of you all as, being really very instrumental in the success of Lighthouse. And, I want to thank you all as, someone who's benefited, from just the programs of watching Lighthouse and being inspired as to what's going on. And, for the sacrifices you all have made in marriage and, Sister Zarreen putting up with our brother Sundiata. And, may Allah reward you. And we really appreciate you all sharing your story with us. And, inshallah, hopefully inspiring people, to get married. But we have a question before we go. And the question is, does Lighthouse have a marriage program? I know a few singles in Cali too. So, hey, does Lighthouse have a marriage program?
So, I think the answer is probably no.
No.
Like a marriage program, as in other than we got a couple brothers that try to pick up every sister that come to Juba.
Well,
because them brothers is our marriage program.
Well, make sure. So we're gonna send you the flyers for our 2 programs coming up dealing with pre-marriage and marriage. Because Imam Nadim's program is pre and while you're married, and then post marriage if it doesn't work out. Inshallah. So Lighthouse's marriage program will be Manners. Right
down the street, they have an annual marriage celebration that we all attend.
Alhamdulillah. So now Lighthouse has 3 programs.
Alhamdulillah.
The 2 meta classes and the program up the street. Alhamdulillah. So again, Jazakumullah khairan for sharing your time.
Well, yeah, and we thank you so much, Brother Malik, and Brother Targ behind the scenes. Man, Allah bless you and you, both of you guys and your families. Me, you guys, man, Allah keep everybody's marriages strong. All the married out there. And
we're gonna ask you, Brother Sundiata, lead us out in dua.
Alhamdulillah, Rabb. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. So we just close out with Surah Al-Asr, inshallah. Allah bless you, man.
And I love the Lighthouse. We have some dynamic programming. Don't let me. Mashallah, just to let you know.
Alhamdulillah, no, we all know what's going on. We know our Lighthouse is the Lighthouse. Want to tell everybody, join us next week, same time. We'll have Dr. Iksan Bagby and his wife, Sister Wahida Muhammad. Inshallah, should be good. So join us next week. Until then,
they've been doing it for a long time, man. They've been doing their thing for a long time.
How long have you been married?
We got married in '95. So I don't know what's
26 years.
26 years, I guess.
Wow, mashallah. Mashallah, you're about to, inshallah, you're 3 decades.
Alhamdulillah. And it goes so fast, it only feels like 25 and a half years.
I'm sure for our sister Zarreen, it went by really fast. Alhamdulillah. I'm sure. Hey, time flies when you're having fun, mashallah.
That's right. That's right.
Inshallah. You all have a good night, inshallah.
You too, brother.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alhamdulillah.